So memory is an essential component for both personal and professional success. And the good news is anyone can improve their memory, right? About 1/3 of your memory is predetermined by genetics and biology, but 2/3 is in our influence and in control. And I take two approaches. We teach people the software, like how to learn a language faster, how to remember a speech without using notes, how to improve your vocabulary, how to remember numbers and passwords and PIN numbers and all those things. But that's the software. You also take care of the hardware, right? The brain itself, that 3-pound matter between your ears. And I always tell people to take your meds. And it's not a pharmaceutical, it's another acronym.
Welcome to the Radical Responsibility Podcast. I'm Dr. Fleet Mall, and I'm excited to guide you on a journey of authentic transformation. In each episode, I'll bring you insights from leading experts to explore trauma recovery, mindfulness practices, positive psychology, and innovative breakthroughs in health, wellness, and life optimization. This is a space for real conversations that inspire meaningful change, helping you find alignment with the person you are always meant to be. Let's get started. Have you ever been told that you're not smart enough, that your brain is fixed and learning stops after a certain age? Millions of people are trapped by these toxic beliefs, feeling like their potential is limited. But what if everything you've been told about your brain is wrong? Jim Kwik knows this struggle all too well. Once labeled the boy with the broken brain, he faced learning challenges that seemed insurmountable. Today, he's a world-renowned brain coach, founder of Kwik Learning, and author of Limitless, Upgrade Your Brain, Learn Anything Faster, and Unlock Your Exceptional Life. He has dedicated his life to helping millions unlock their brain's potential and accelerate learning. In this episode, you'll discover the science-backed truth about human potential and learn how to break free from self-doubt. Are you ready to unlock your limitless brain? This is the Radical Responsibility Podcast, where transformation begins. So before we get started, I wonder if you could, it was somewhat referenced in your bio that you had a childhood head injury. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about how that then led you to get into this work.
So my inspiration was my desperation. When people see me in audiences at events, I'll sometimes, if there's time, do a memory demonstration where we'll pass around a microphone to audience members and have them introduce themselves. And I'll memorize 50, 60, 100 people's names. Or they'll challenge me by giving me 100-digit number or 100 random words, and I'll recall it forwards and backwards. But I always tell people, I don't do this to impress you. I really do this to express to you what's possible. Because the truth is, every single one of you watching and listening right now, you could do that too. We just weren't taught. You know, school teaches you what to learn, math, history, science, Spanish, but there are very few classes on actually how to learn. And the reason why I know it's possible, as you mentioned, I had an injury when I was 5 years old. I was in kindergarten class and I took an unfortunate fall, or maybe a fortunate fall, and I hit my head 2 times on that fall and I was rushed to the emergency room. And you could say that before, my parents would say I was very energized, very curious, very playful. I became very shut down. I had focus issues, memory issues. I had migraines every day as a 5-year-old. So I really struggled. It took me 3 years longer just to learn how to read like the other children. When I was 9 years old, there was an inflection, like an event where I was being teased in class pretty harshly because I just didn't understand the lessons and I couldn't keep up. And the teacher came to my defense. She pointed to me in front of the whole class and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the boy with the broken brain." And talk about wiring your brain. I wasn't born with this idea that I was broken, but adults have to be very careful of their external words because they often become a child's internal words. So every single time I did badly in school, which was weekly, every time I wasn't picked for sports, which was all the time, I would say, "Oh, because I have the broken brain." And so I struggled every single day. When I was 7 years old, I unfortunately lost my grandmother, who was my hero. She was my parents immigrated to the United States. They had many jobs. We lived in the back of the laundromat that my mom worked at. She was taking care of me and she started showing early signs of dementia when I was 5. And, that was very confusing as a child, so she eventually passed of Alzheimer's when I was 7. And I wrote a book called Limitless. We gave all the royalties of that book to Alzheimer's research for women. Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men, yet most of the research is done on males and treatments on males. So you could say, I've taken my mess and turned it into my message. When I was 18, I learned some strategies that really transformed everything. And And I started to tutor, and one of my very first students, she was a college freshman. She read 30 books in 30 days because I taught her how to speed read, but not skim or scan. She really understood it. And I wanted to find out not how, I taught her how. I wanted to know, like, why, what was her purpose? And I found out her mother was dying of terminal cancer, and doctors only gave her mother 60 days, 2 months to live. And the books she was reading were books to save her mom's life, which she ended up doing so. And when I heard that, I realized two things: that if knowledge is power, then learning really is our superpower. And it's a superpower we all have, regardless of what age or stage you are in life. And the other thing I realized, because of neuroplasticity, as we're talking about in this summit, the other thing I realized was my dharma. My mission in life is to, as the boy with the broken brain, was to build better, brighter brains, no brain left behind.
Wow, what a powerful story. So we're focused on beliefs in this summit. Of course, beliefs have their correlates and neural networks, and we can look at it psychologically, changing our beliefs. That means we're changing the brain, changing neural networks. So what have you seen is how the power of belief, how belief influences how we interpret the world and then how we show up in the world and our strategies for getting our needs met and so forth, that you've seen the power play a role in someone's ability to access higher performance and creativity versus not? What are some of the limiting beliefs and just the power of belief altogether? How do you see that?
Oh, I love this question. This is a topic I really wish was taught in school. I believe all behavior is belief driven, meaning if you want to create a result in your life, you need to do a new behavior. But in order to do that behavior, you need an empowering belief that says it's possible. You know, when I wrote Limitless, before I hit send to my publisher, I asked myself this question: will everybody who reads this book get the results they're hoping for? And my honest answer was no, because the book was just full of methodology: how to read faster, how to learn languages, how to remember names and faces, how to focus. And a lot of people know what to do, but I realized they don't always do what they know. And so I added 2 new sections in there, one on motivation, you know, the secrets to motivating yourself when you have to do things you're procrastinating on. But the other big section of the book is mindset. And a big part of mindset are our beliefs, you know, like what you believe is possible, what you believe you're capable of, what you believe you deserve. If you have this belief that says, you know, you can learn great methods on how to make money, but if your belief is money is the root of all evil, I have to hurt people to make money, you're still going to be stuck in that box, right? And so for me, belief is foundational. It's a powerful driver for all human potential. The way we think about our own abilities, whether we believe we can improve or not, whether we think our brains are fixed, like our shoe size, or if it can grow, it has a profound impact on how we perform. You know, when we're talking about neuroplasticity, you know, the brain's ability to adapt with novelty. When you adopt a growth mindset, a belief that you can develop the abilities through effort. At these same events, people would invariably pull me aside in the lobby and say, "I'm so glad you're here." They'll do it secretly. They'll whisper and they'll say something like, "I have a horrible memory. I'm just getting too old." And I always say the same thing. I say, stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. If you fight for your limits, they're yours. If people truly understood, Fleet, how powerful their mind is, they wouldn't say or think something they didn't want to be true. And that's not to say you have one negative thought and it ruins your life any more than eating one donut will ruin your life. But if you ate that donut 30 times a day, every single day, I think everybody listening would agree there would be a consequence. Same thing. It's hard to create a positive life with, you know, a lot of negative beliefs. But when you adopt that growth mindset that you can develop through effort, your brain is more likely to engage in the learning process, making it easier to create new neural connections, and invariably will help your performance. And so my belief was I'm broken, right? And so, you know, I filtered everything through that. And so it's one of those things where I believe when it comes to something like our brain, there's no such thing as a good or bad brain. There's a trained brain and there's an untrained brain. And so beliefs are really foundational, which is why this summit is so very important, because your brain doesn't come with an owner's manual, right? And it's not user friendly. So that's why we write books about this. We have podcasts and courses to support people on this process, that you could be the pilot of your brain. You don't have to be the passenger.
So Jim, you work with a lot of students, you work with a lot of leaders. I wonder if you could give an example or two of how a real fundamental shift in belief or mindset has helped someone really unlock a whole new level of performance, cognitive abilities, and performance in their career life.
So limiting beliefs are powerful mental roadblocks that could significantly hinder your cognitive performance, your learning, your focus, your overall success. In my experience, these beliefs usually stem from past experiences or societal conditioning. It might be coming from self-doubt. It can be, through marketing and media. I think, one of the shared work that we do, you and I and the other experts, is about transcending. If you look at the word transcend, we're ending the trance. And, this mass hypnosis, whether it's through marketing or media that says we're not enough, that we're broken, that we need to be fixed. Or it can be, if it's not hypnosis, it might be self-hypnosis from our own self-talk. And so, we see many different patterns. And so we get, some of the most prevalent beliefs that could hinder you is something like, I'm not smart enough. I call these lies in the book. LIE is an acronym, limited idea entertained. It's not true that you're not smart enough. It's not true that you're too old. It's not true that you have a horrible memory, but it's an idea we're giving energy to. And so, like, I'm not smart enough is one of the most common I encounter working with performers, even at the highest level. People who might have, like me, struggled in school, might have been labeled as slow learners, tend to carry this belief sometimes through adulthood, unless they are, educated with a summit like this. And another one is, it's too late for me to learn. The two dips we see in cognitive performance usually are when people graduate school, because they associate education with learning. And when their formal education is done, then their learning is done, which I find it kind of not true. Also, when people retire, because often when people retire from their careers, they often retire their minds. They don't use their minds in the same way. And your brain is like a muscle. It's an organ, but it acts like a muscle, and it's use it or lose it. If I put my arm in a cast for a year, it wouldn't grow stronger. It wouldn't even stay the same, right? Everyone know it would atrophy, but same thing with our mental muscles. So another belief that could hold people back working with high performers is, it's too late for me. And that's absolutely not true. Research shows that neuroplasticity could occur from the beginning of birth to the day we die. And neuroplasticity happens with two things. You need novelty and you need nutrition. Just like if you want to build your physical muscles, you would give it novelty, you would work it out, give it some kind of stimulus, and then you would feed it nutrition, right? So it could grow better. And it could help you live longer too. There was a study done, it was featured on the cover of Time magazine, with these community of nuns that were living 80, 90 and above. And the researchers wanted to find out what was the key to their long life. And they found out half of it was their faith, their gratitude. The other half, though, was they were lifelong learners. They were researching every day. They were studying every day. They were having deep debates and conversations and socializing. And because of it, it added years to their life. But not only that, life to their years also as well. They were good lives. The study, people want to look it up, is called Aging with Grace. So it's too late to learn could be another one. Some people say, I have beliefs like I'm not creative, or I don't have enough time, or failure means I'm broken, or I'm not capable, or I can't focus. And these aren't things that you have. You don't have focus. You don't have a memory. You do it. And a big part of my work is taking these nouns and turning them into verbs. Because the other way we hypnotize ourselves with our self-talk that forms our belief system is saying things like, I don't have energy. I don't have a good memory. I don't have motivation. Have is like a noun, right? You have a noun, but when you turn it into a verb, it gives you your responsibility back, right? And it's so very important. You talk about radical responsibility, right? It's a choice. I have a quote in Limitless that says, life is the letter C between the letters B and D. Life is C between B and D. It's worth writing down. B is birth, D is death, life C, choice, right? Responsibility is a choice. And when we embrace 100% ownership or responsibility for each and every circumstance that we face in our lives day in and day out, then we could do remarkable things. And you write about this, a lot. So, these are just some of the things that I see, whether they're, top actors or athletes or CEOs of companies. Everybody seems to be struggling with the same things. Like, other people are more talented than me, and, all these different things. So we help people in Limitless to break through and give them a process for freeing themselves from these limiting beliefs, these lies.
Well, obviously, you're singing my song talking about choice and the power of choice. You referenced really taking action. And I was about to ask you, I think many people are familiar with the limiting beliefs you mentioned, all the ways that I think I'm not enough, or that it's too late, or it's too hard, or this or that. And the scarcity thinking we have about life, there's not enough of this or that to go around and so forth, all these classic limiting beliefs. So how do we get out of that, right? And I suspected, I was wondering how you went from the boy labeled with the boy with the broken brain to, not believing that lie anymore. And I suspected it's something that you said you engaged in some accelerated learning training yourself. And maybe that's how you proved to yourself it wasn't true. Oh, I take action, I do this. Actually, my brain's not broken. I'm able to do this. I wonder if you could talk about the importance of taking action to get out of the sort of malaise of that self-talk and the cloud of doubt about our abilities.
So I think a massive intelligent action is really a cure-all. We can visualize everything in our head, goals, and learn strategies and read books and podcasts. But if it stays in your head and you're not acting with your hands, you're not acting, right? And I think sometimes we have to check in with the second H, which is our heart, which symbolizes emotion, right? It has to go from your head to your heart to your hands. And so when we don't have purpose or we're not logical so much as we are biological. You think about dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin, endorphins. We are this neurochemical soup. And sometimes if we don't feel something, we won't do something, so breaking free from limiting beliefs is an active process. I talk about 6 different things in Limitless, starting with number 1, awareness, because it's hard to change something unless you're aware that it exists, right? So acknowledging your limiting beliefs, once you recognize it, then you can begin to change it. The second thing I would recommend, and I would recommend people do this right now, I like to make it an active process. Think about a belief that's holding you back. Maybe you feel like you're not enough, or maybe you feel like, you have a horrible memory or you're too old. The second thing I would do is question that belief. Ask yourself, is this belief absolutely true? Often limiting beliefs are based on past experiences or the stories that we're telling ourselves that aren't grounded in reality. The third thing people could do is to be able, in action, is to reframe that belief, turning that limiting belief into something that's more growth oriented. So for example, instead of saying, I'm not good at this, shifting it, being aware. So it's there, and then shifting it to something like, I'm still learning, and I'm improving. Even when people find themselves saying, I don't have a great memory, even adding a little shift, like a word yet at the end. I don't have a great memory yet. It just opens up the possibility and the potential, right? And so it's one of those things where you could reframe the limiting belief. And then the fourth thing you could do is exactly as your question was, which is take action. The most powerful way to break a limiting belief is to take action that disproves it. Even in our courses that we have the largest online academy of brain optimization, accelerated learning, our company is called Kwik Learning. Kwik really is my last name. I didn't change it. Kwik. It's my father's name, my grandfather's name. We get people in the very first session to memorize something they never thought they could do. They take action and then they start questioning like, wow, if I could do this, what else can I do? And so, I always recommend something called S3, small, simple steps. Start by taking a small, simple step that aligns with your new belief. You're creating evidence that you are this person that you aim or desire or to really deserve to be. And these positive experiences, as their evidence, they reinforce this new mindset. And then the last 2 things I would say for an action you could take for changing limiting beliefs is surround yourself with more positive influences. Who you spend time with is who you become. In our nervous system, we have something called mirror neurons, where it creates empathy, and it allows us to imitate even unconsciously the people around us. And I always say watch, WATCH. I use a lot of shortcut acronyms. The W is words. We start using the language of the people around us. The A in watch are actions. We start to behave as the people around us do, right? If somebody, if you spend a lot of time with people who meditate, you're more likely to meditate. If you spend time with people who smoke, you're more likely to smoke. So it's less your neurological networks or your biological networks, it's also more your social networks. So surrounding yourself with growth-minded individuals who encourage you. Like we all need people to encourage us, to cheerlead for us, to be kind to us, to challenge us. And if you haven't found that person yet, my recommendation is to be that person, especially be that person for you. And then the last thing we talk about in Limitless is create new mental habits. Like we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, roughly, and depending on what research you look at. And the problem is, in my experience, 95% of those thoughts are the same thoughts you had yesterday and the day before that. And, this sequence of success is, be, do, have, share. But the being is your identity, it's your belief system. And just like you can rewire your brain with new physical habits, you can create new mental habits, whether it's through affirmation, visualization, EFT, self-hypnosis, gratitude, to cultivate a more empowering mindset and belief system daily.
Well, it's really interesting just to listen to you, Jim, and tuning into your use of acronyms, which obviously are memory devices, and also very clear statements and clear distinctions, which I suspect you've said in the same way again and again, because they have such clarity to them. And I love that very simple way to reframe a limiting belief by adding yet at the end. I don't have a great memory yet. That's really powerful. You talked about in order to encourage positive neuroplasticity and the need for both novelty and nutrition. So if we think about our day, just getting off to a good start seems to be really important. And whatever this somewhat mysterious thing called willpower is, we all know we have more of it in the morning than we do late at night when we're tired. So I know you, like many, speak to having a good, strong morning routine that'll get us going in the right direction. So I wonder if you could talk about the power of creating a morning routine that's going to both set us up physically, emotionally, cognitively for having a positive day, as well as setting us on that path to learning that day. It's just going to be a day of learning.
That's such a great question, Fleet. I believe to win the day, you have to win that first hour of the day. It sets you up, and to prime, everybody has a different morning routine. Oprah has hers, Tim Ferriss has his. For me, it's really about getting my brain right. I think our brain is the control center for everything, our relationships, our wealth, our happiness, our mood. And so, that first hour of the day, I'm very kind of protective, and I'll give our listeners some suggestions, but the best routine is the one you'll do. So understand more of the principles of what I'm saying, and then people could customize it. Like, there's a science to it, but there's also an art, in terms of how we design our days to design our life. So morning routines are absolutely crucial for setting the tone of your day, for optimizing your cognitive performance, to jumpstart your brain. What you do that first hour of waking can either hinder or it could help your brain's ability to focus, to learn, to perform at its best. And so, my morning routine has changed over time, especially being a new father and, running a business and having a lot of hats like many of your listeners have. At the very least, my non-negotiables I could do in 10 minutes, and it's free. And so I read years and years ago, I was researching, I found out that ancient civilizations like Babylonian times, the ancient Greeks, they believed everything was made up of 4 elements: air, fire, earth, and water, right? And I was just like, hey, if I really want to win today, I want to be exposed to those 4 elements. So for example, in 10 minutes, this is all it takes. And I could do it with my son. You could also do it with your loved ones. It doesn't take a lot of time and it's free. So there's no excuse to at least experiment and try it for yourself. Because ultimately, you listening, you're the expert, right? You are the expert of you. So I go outside and I get direct sunlight. And the sun represents fire for me. Your eyes are the only part of your brain that's outside of your skull. And what it does is the sunlight, even if it's hazy or cloudy, it helps to reset your circadian rhythm. And that's your 24-hour clock, which will help you sleep better at night. So that's so very important. Just getting out for 5 or 10 minutes, not through a window, because a window could actually filter out some of the spectrum of light. Just being outside for 10 minutes will help you sleep better at night. So that's the fire. I also go out and, if you can, just be barefoot. For me, there's a whole science of grounding. There's an exchange of electrons to reduce stress, to help you feel more stable and healthy, connecting to nature. So I just go barefoot, and the ground represents earth. So the sun is fire, the ground is earth. I also hydrate. We can lose up, so your brain is only 2% of your body mass, but it requires 20% of the nutrients We've done over 400 podcast episodes. They're only 20 minutes. People binge listen to it. There's no sponsors. So it's very easy because I just really want to get it out free to the world. And we had a neuroscientist who's also a nutritionist on, and she was saying that Dr. Lisa Mosconi, if you're just dehydrated 2%, it could significantly impact your cognitive health and your cognitive performance. And staying hydrated could boost your reaction time, your thinking speed, upwards of 30%. Yet when we sleep, we can lose up to a pound of water through respiration, through perspiration. And so I just have a glass of water. Usually sometimes I'll put some electrolytes or some sea salt or some lemon. So it's a little bit more structured. And so water obviously is water. And then the fourth element after fire, earth, and water is air. And, while I'm sitting down on the grass or, on the sand, I'll do some breathing exercises. And it varies. If I want to do some Wim Hof breathing or some box breathing or some, something else, for me, it just clears the mental cobwebs out. It energizes my nervous system and I'm ready to go. So those are some of the basic things: hydration to replenish my brain, deep breathing to oxygenate my brain. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of priming and, prayer, or gratitude. I think the greatest prayer is just thank you. And I really allow myself to feel that. Gets me in that parasympathetic rest and digest. And then those are my non-negotiables. And if there's a little bit more time, I'll jump into a cold plunge or take a cold shower. This might sound very extreme to some people, but science is really backing that cold exposure has a significant amount of cognitive benefits. It wakes up your nervous system. For me, it's even more than coffee. It increases your alertness. It helps release, these neurotransmitters that it can enhance your focus, your attention, your mood. Cold showers could also boost your circulation, reduce inflammation, make your body feel more awake and ready for action. And plus, it's also a mental challenge. And, I subscribe to the idea that if you just do the easy things in life, you procrastinate, put things off, you just binge watch things, you don't move, that's easy. But then life gets hard. If you do easy things, something gets hard. But if you get yourself to do hard things, then life gets a whole lot easier. So cold plunges or the cold showers or the cold bath, it's like a mental challenge, overcoming the initial discomfort. I feel like it could strengthen your willpower and your overall mental resilience. So that way, when you don't want to do something and you get yourself to do it, how you do anything is how you do everything. So maybe you'll take that same attribute to the things that you have to do for work or with your family that you're equally kind of adverse to, but you get yourself to do hard things. And then, because I think life is hard for one of two reasons. Either you're leaving your comfort zone, you're doing new things, you're challenging yourself, you're exercising, you're reading, you're studying, having uncomfortable conversations. So life can be difficult if you're leaving your comfort zone, but life is also difficult if you stay in your comfort zone.
Absolutely. We get into that posture where life's happening to us, or we feel like life's happening to us because we're sitting back there in our comfort zone, waiting to see what we get. And it can be challenging to step out of our comfort zone, but it's also where all the energy we need to thrive is. So you've described so beautifully. And I do the cold shower every morning, and I'll do it for all the reasons you said. There's a lot of science around it. It's also supposed to help with weight control and so forth. But I also do it because there's at least part of my body or part of my brain does not want to do it, right? I take a nice hot shower to begin with, but then fortunately have a stand-up shower with a head at each end, right? And so I turn that one off, turn the other one on, I step in there. And, by taking that action, I'm putting myself in charge. The fear-based, the comfort zone part of me is not going to be in charge. It's just that act of stepping into the cold water puts me in charge in that direction for a day. So I wonder if you could talk a bit about, in contrast to building up the capacities you were talking about by changing our beliefs and by taking action that will change our beliefs, we all do have a kind of basic fear and survival-based programming, right? And earlier in the development of human beings and hominids, we really were at survival all the time. And there's part of our brain is continually telling us we're going to die, we're going to starve to death, and if we don't procreate right now, our genes won't go into the next generation. So there's this very base level, but fortunately we're conscious beings, and we could override that. But I think so many of us find us, even though we have a lot of this knowledge that we're sharing here on this summit, we still find ourselves not doing the things we know would be good for us, or we find ourselves doing things we know are not so good for us. And there's something driving that. And I wonder if you could talk about what it is that's driving that and how do we transcend that, as you said before.
A nice place to start is on our rituals. I believe first you create your habits, then your habits create you, right? You create your habits of meditation or gratitude journaling or moving each day, which is very important for your brain. As your body moves, your brain grooves. But, research shows approximately, and it varies, approximately 40% of our daily behavior is habitual, usually unconscious. But when did we sit down and actually design those rituals? So I feel like having success rituals is the foundation for greater performance. And they're often driven by deep, empowering belief systems, right? So through my work with executives or entrepreneurs or performers, I've observed that their success isn't just the result of discipline and willpower. It's also rooted in the beliefs that shape their habits. And these individuals have mastered the art of creating rituals that align with their goals. And also when you have rituals, you don't have to expend a lot of cognitive energy. A lot of people, there's something called decision fatigue, which basically states that you can only make a certain amount of good decisions in a day. And then after that, people might have the experience where they had a long day mentally and they're sitting at a restaurant for dinner and they're looking at the menu and they can't even decide what they want to eat, right? Because they've spent all their decisions. So creating rituals and habits to really automate, what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, you don't have to use that energy and you can use it towards other things. But some of the key ritual belief changes is something like a belief I have is I am in control of my day. It's not the other way around. That top performers believe they are a thermostat. They're not a thermometer. Right? Think about this analogy. A thermometer, its only function is it reacts. It reacts to the environment. Whatever the environment is, that's what the thermometer, reacts to. But a thermostat doesn't react, right? A thermostat's a little different. It gauges the temperature. It knows what's going on, but then it sets a temperature and then the environment reacts to you. And we set temperatures on our thermostat all the time in terms of what we deserve. We set temperatures of our standards, our goals, maybe in business, your key performance indicators or whatever. But I believe that, to do this belief enables you to prioritize tasks that align with your goals and avoid being pulled into constant distraction, right? It's not just about time management. It's about mind management. It's about priority management. And the principle for that is the most important thing is to keep the most important thing, the most important thing, right? The most important thing is to keep the most important thing or things, the most important thing. So, a lot of people feel busy and, sometimes they feel burnt out because they're doing too much. They're exhausted because they're doing too much. But it's been my experience, as you mentioned, doing this for 32 years, that sometimes we're burnt out not because we're doing too much. Sometimes we're burnt out because we're doing too little of the things that make us come alive, and including in that self-care. So, it's high performers, these individuals, they create rituals that reflect their commitment to focus, to productivity, to well-being. And how does it manifest? It often starts with their day, with a proactive morning routine. One of the other things I do first thing in the morning is, okay, I'll tell you what I don't do. I don't touch my phone. I have a video with Simon Sinek on Facebook 12 years ago saying, just don't touch your phone for 30 minutes. Try this. Because when you wake up in the morning, you're probably in the most relaxed state you'll be in all day, right? You're very suggestible and you're in that kind of alpha state. And if the first thing you do is pick up your phone, then you're rewiring your brain for two things: distraction, because every like, share, comment, cat video is just, Jay Shetty talks about this. It's like you would never, first thing when you wake up, invite 100 people into your bedroom to talk to you. But that's exactly what we're doing when we're doom scrolling, right? So you get this dopamine flood and it's very addictive. So it trains you to be distracted. And then you wonder why you can't focus with your kids or with your family or at work because you started your day distracted. But the other thing, it rewires your brain, not only distraction, but reaction. Talking about being a thermometer, right? Sometimes you go through and you get a text message, you pick up your phone first thing in the morning, you get a text message, an email, a social media message, a voicemail, whatever. And you're fighting fires and you're on the defense. And how do you build this extraordinary life that you desire and deserve by just reacting? You're on the defense. So what do I do instead? I close my eyes when I wake up and I just do this quick visualization. I would challenge everyone to do it tomorrow morning. It only takes 2 minutes. close your eyes and do this mental experiment. Fast forward to the end of the day and you're getting ready for bed and somebody asks you, maybe a spouse, family member, somebody calls you, whatever, and they ask you, how was your day? And it's nighttime, you're ready for bed. And I want you to imagine you saying, today was an amazing day. I had so much joy. I really won today. We crushed it today, whatever. And ask yourself this follow-up. What had to happen in order for you to feel that way? And then this is what I mean about priority management. I come up with 3 things personally and 3 things professionally that would have made me feel like this was a great day. And that's my focus for the day, those 6 things, and not keeping the most important. And they don't have to be huge things. One of my personal things today is going for a walk with my dogs, right? And that would give me a sense of, time to think and connect and just get some fresh nature. But yeah, I just think that creating a proactive morning routine, whether it's meditation, exercise, goal setting, journaling, rather than checking emails and going to social media, it sets a tone for productive and it reminds you of your own agency, right? Your own ability to respond and not react. So many different things, and in this area, we could probably go hours, on this topic.
I'm sure you could. And I can't wait to get the transcript from this. And the transcripts are available to everyone in our audience. You'll be able to download to get the transcript and be highlighting lots of things.
And I recommend everybody do that from a learning perspective because it allows you, one of the ways of learning something is something called spaced repetition and review. A lot of people take notes, but they don't review those notes. But it's a wonderful way to fast track consolidating information from short-term memory to long-term memory. So I highly recommend people rewatch this, read the transcripts and do all that.
And also I emphasize the power of these rituals and strategies and that they have momentum when we repeat them. So, I had to start by literally getting my phone out of the room. Now, it is in my room now. It's not near the bed, but it's on its charger and I use it for my wearables and the sleep and stuff like that. But I've trained myself. I have now absolutely no interest. I don't go anywhere near email or social media or text or anything like that for the first 2.5 hours of my day. And I've trained myself that, and I actually no longer have any desire to do that. I don't feel the impulse. But I had to start by getting it out of the room, so I couldn't do it.
We've had on our podcast the top habit experts in the world. Dr. BJ Fogg out of Stanford University wrote Tiny Habits. I've interviewed James Clear, wrote Atomic Habits. One of the most important aspects to habit design is exactly what you said, is to manage your environment. The principle here, and I always go back to first principles, is my suggestion is for everybody, is you want to make what's good for you easier and what's not good for you more difficult. So a simple thing like having your phone in your bathroom, if that's possible, it's just like if you don't want to eat gluten and you're at a restaurant and the waitstaff brings you bread, you could either say no to the bread right up front, or if the bread sits there and you're not supposed to eat it for your health concerns, then otherwise if it's sitting there, you have to say no to yourself 50 times during that meal, as opposed to just removing it and you're controlling the environment. Like for me in my office, I have a pull-up bar right in the doorway. So I'm more likely to do those pull-ups because I make what's good for me easier in my life. I have a fiction book by my nightstands. I look at that, or a gratitude journal by my nightstand. It makes it a lot easier for me to follow through on those new habits.
Yeah, wonderful. I love that. Make what's good for us easier and what's not good for us more difficult. Another one of these jewels you're sharing with us. So I wonder if we could maybe geek out on the neuroscience a little bit. There are people in our audience who I know appreciate that. So, you talked before about, limiting some of the amount of decisions we have to make because we can get into decision exhaustion. And our brain is continually economizing its energy because it's exposed to gazillion points of data continually. And the brain is a processing machine, an organism. And so, we're processing information and making decisions about what to do with that information. Steve Jobs was renowned wearing the exact same black turtleneck shirt every day, had a whole closet full of them, so he didn't have to waste time deciding what shirt to wear. And I think there are other thought leaders that do think similar things. So I wonder if you could talk about that, the process of how the brain actually processes information and how we can sort of get in sync with that so that we are going along with the brain's tendency to economize energy and do so in such a way that is enhancing our memory, remembering what we need, really. I mean, we don't need to remember everything, right? Prioritizing that. And so maybe a little bit about how the brain actually works as a processing unit and how we can optimize that by understanding how it works and then kind of getting in flow with it or getting in sync with it.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about memory because I feel like, Socrates said learning is remembering. And, even with AI and Google and everything, going back to the, life is the C between B and D, where C is choice. We can only make good choice. Like our life is a sum total of all the choices we've made up to this point, right? And we can only make good decisions based on the information that we know. And if we know it, we must remember it. I believe two of the most costly words in life, or definitely in business, are I forgot. Think about the consequence of saying, I forgot to do it. I forgot to go to that meeting. I forgot what I just read. I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot that conversation. I forgot that person's name. It just goes on and on, right? We lose time. We lose momentum. We lose trust. We could hurt a relationship. On the other side, memory is a magnifier. It can enhance every area. It makes your relationship better when you can remember important information about, the person that you care about. Certainly in sales, when you can easily remember client information, product information, give a speech without notes, all the things that we teach. So memory is an essential component for both personal and professional success. And the good news is anyone can improve their memory, right? About 1/3 of your memory is predetermined by genetics and biology, but 2/3 is in our influence and in control. And I take two approaches. We teach people the software, like how to learn a language faster, how to remember a speech without using notes, how to improve your vocabulary, how to remember numbers and passwords and PIN numbers and all those things. But that's the software. You also take care of the hardware, right? The brain itself, that 3-pound matter between your ears. And I always tell people to take your meds. And it's not a pharmaceutical, it's another acronym. The M is meditate. You have to disconnect to reconnect. Your brain's not meant to go 100 miles an hour all day. Taking a little pit stop to recover. So very important. I call them brain breaks, where I move, I hydrate, I do some breathing to keep my brain fresh and not having it slump. The E in meds, the M was meditate, E is exercise. When you exercise, you create something called brain-derived neurotropic factors, BDNF. What is it? It's like fertilizer for your brain, fertilizer nourishment for neuroplasticity, right? So, and I don't just mean going to yoga or Pilates 3 times a week. I mean, how much are you moving throughout the day? They say sitting is the new smoking. And the primary reason we have a brain is to control our movement. And as your body moves, your brain grooves. Even if people are listening to a podcast or an audiobook when they're doing something rhythmic, they're on a treadmill or doing a brisk walk, they'll actually understand the information better and retain the information better also as well. So the E is exercise. The D is diet. We talk a lot about an area called neuronutrition, which is your brain. Requires different nutrients than the rest of your body. Some of my favorite brain foods, and everyone's bio-individual, right? So you could take a food sensitivity test, a microbiome test. Avocados, the monounsaturated fat is good for your brain. Blueberries, I like to call them brain berries, very full of antioxidants and very neuroprotective. Broccoli has something called sulforaphane, which is important for cognitive health and performance. Olive oil is good for your brain. If your diet allows eggs, the choline in eggs leads to acetylcholine, which is important for cognitive health and performance. And there's also supplements for this, all these things also as well. Fatty fish like salmon or sardines, you get your omega-3s, your DHAs, but if you can't eat fish, you could supplement with something, or flax. Green leafy vegetables, kale, spinach, turmeric. That's wonderful to lower systemic inflammation. The active ingredient is called curcumin. There, walnuts, high in vitamin E, very neuroprotective. Dark chocolate, not milk chocolate, but dark chocolate has been shown to be supportive for good brain health. So that's the D is diet. And then the S is sleep. Right? We do a whole chapter on sleep. Everyone knows this, but are you practicing good sleep hygiene? How's your brain operating the next day when you have a bad night's sleep? How do you think? How do you focus? How do you remember? That's your cognitive energy, your mental vitality when you don't sleep. When you sleep, a couple of things to highlight. You consolidate short to long-term memory. So if you have long-term memory issues, you could do a sleep study. And nowadays, you don't even have to go into a clinic to sleep overnight. Doctors could prescribe you a sleep study that you could do at home from the comfort of your own home. Some people struggle with sleep apnea or other things that could affect their sleep. So it's very important. Also, when you sleep for your brain, the sewage system in your brain kicks in when you sleep, when you're in that slow brainwave state, usually in deep sleep, REM sleep, and you clean out that beta amyloid plaque that builds up that could lead to brain aging challenges like dementia. So my favorite things for sleep, and just as a reminder, everybody has different things. Again, direct sunlight first thing in the morning will help you sleep better at night. Another thing, I'm very highly sensitive to caffeine, so I can't do caffeine past 2 p.m. because it could stay in your system for 10 hours plus. Also, probably a couple of big things. If you use an alarm clock to wake up, I really encourage you to use that same alarm to go to sleep. Your brain loves a routine, a rhythm, structure, even on the weekends. And nobody gets this perfect, but to the degree you could go to bed at the same time and wake at the same time, you're going to get better overall sleep over time. And then the two big ones, remember thousands of years ago, we would know it'd be time to sleep because the environment would tell us. There would be a decrease in two environmental factors. It'd be temperature and light. And so we sleep better when it's cooler and when it's darker. So what can you do? You could not only control the temperature, because nowadays it could stay the same temperature and the same lighting because of modern conveniences. But what I recommend is you could have blackout curtains. But the challenge is a lot of people, they're on their devices again. And that the light coming off from your phone or your iPad or whatever, it fools the mind into thinking it's still daylight. So you don't create this hormone called melatonin, which helps you to relax and phase into that sleep. So the blue light in your screens could affect your sleep. And then the other thing is temperature. We sleep better when it's cold. Now where it's so cold, you're shivering because that'll keep you up. And one of the things you could do is just take a warm shower or a warm bath. And even when you take a warm bath, put some Epsom salt because the magnesium you absorb transdermally, which will help you to relax better also as well. But when you come out of a hot shower or bath or sauna, your core body temperature will drop. And that's the signal to create melatonin again. So take care of your sleep. So that's your meds. If I was to add two things, meds, RX. The R is relationships. We talked about who you spend time with is who you become. We had on our podcast the director of the largest study at Harvard, 80 years plus on happiness and longevity. And yes, diet was important, exercise is important, but what trumped that was social connection. And so we are social beings. And so, having those deep bonds are so very important. So that's the R. And the X are all the extras. It could be a cold plunge. We talk a lot about in Limitless nootropics. Like these are different than supplements for cognitive health or food for cognitive health. That's for just baseline wellness. But there are substances with human studies that have been shown to enhance focus, memory, mood, mental energy. We put together, if you don't want to buy the book, you could get this list of ingredients with all of the studies listed, human studies, at brainnutrition.com. So if people like to go there, they could get a free report and, see which ones they want to be able to look into. Creatine is one of the most studied substances. And now people associate that with working out, but it also helps with mitochondria, mental energy. And it also helps to offset. A recent study shows it can offset bad night's sleep also, or at least not completely offset, but help you to recover from it. So that's the X, meds RX.
Well, I really do encourage everyone in our audience to download the transcript and highlight it and study it because this is everything. It's just so dense with very practical how-to information to improve the overall quality of our life. I think we're getting towards the end of our time. And, a lot of our audience, I think, comes from a mindfulness background. And this issue of performance and success can be a difficult one because I think a lot of us associate it with being automatically evaluative and comparative. And I think that caused a lot of us to hold back from the idea of, stepping into, really manifesting our talents and everything we could be in life because we don't want to get into that high performance success where, because we just think you can't divorce it from that comparative ego-centered kind of, and I wonder if you could say something that obviously that's a set of beliefs there, right? So how could we change our beliefs about how we think about performance and success for ourselves individually that it could be meaningful, not become a limiting belief, but become a life enhancing belief for us?
That's a great question. In Limitless, I talk about the four supervillains, the four horsemen of the mental apocalypse: digital distraction, digital dementia, which is the outsourcing to memory, like it keeps your schedules, your to-do. It thinks about how many phone numbers you and I knew growing up, but how many phone numbers do we remember today, right? That's digital dementia, where it's high reliance on technology. You also have something I coined called digital deluge, which is that it's the information anxiety. the information overload, which could create higher blood pressure, compression of leisure time, more sleep. I mean, how many people buy books and they sit on your shelf unread, right? And it becomes shelf help, not self-help. Nowadays, it's like you take a sip of water out of a fire hose just because we don't know how to read properly. That's why we spend so much time teaching people this. And then the last one is something called digital deduction, where your devices aren't just remembering things for you, it's thinking for you. I mean, if you take something simple like getting from here to there, you have an app, but you don't have to develop your mental, visual spatial intelligence, right? And it's a muscle. And I'm not anti-technology, and I'll get to the answer in a moment. But like fire is an early form of technology. It's just how it's applied. It could cook your food or it could burn down your home, right? Technology, just like an elevator is a form of technology. If your apartment or your office was on the 5th floor, yes, it's very convenient to take an elevator, but we could have got those steps in, right? If you take a car to go to the bank and it's 8 blocks away, yes, it's convenient, but it also could be crippling if we're not getting our steps in, right? So it's always a balance. So I'm not anti-technology, but if I was to add a 5th one, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's digital depression. People, when they're scrolling, we understand things through comparison often. And sometimes we're comparing our life on social media to somebody else's highlight trailer because nobody's putting a lot of the harsh, struggles, and everyone's fighting a battle no one knows about. Everybody is, no matter what it looks like, on social media and such. So I would just say my suggestion for that person who's comparing themselves is sometimes the grass is greener where you water it. But sometimes it's greener on Instagram or Facebook because of the filter that they're using, right? And there's also a lot of artificial turf out there also as well. So I'd remind you that, if we're green with envy, if we're using that green thing, then we can never be really happy. And the only person that's worth comparing ourselves to, if there's anybody, is the person we were yesterday, right? Because you can't compare your chapter 6 to someone who's chapter 20. It just doesn't even make any sense. And so a lot of times, I spend a lot of time in senior centers. Having lost my grandparents at a very early age, I go there not only to help them with their memory, but also I hear a lot of stories and a lot of wisdom. And in my culture, we learn from, people that there's so much wisdom. People have been on the planet longer than we have. But I also hear a lot of regrets. And I'll say this when it comes to comparison, our own self-worth, our own personal self-esteem, is the regrets I'm hearing is like these men or women, they somehow limited their life because of what other people would think, right? And because they didn't pursue a relationship because of what other people would think about that relationship. Or they pursued a career path because it was expected of them by family members or parents or whatever. And I would just remind everyone, it's not pleasant to think about, but if we're going to begin with the most important things in mind today, first of all, we can't be upset by the results we didn't get from the work we didn't do. So do the work like everybody's doing right now. So that's why I applaud everyone who's listening and rolling, upgrading to the transcripts, doing all that, because you're doing the work, right? But sometimes the people that hold us back are the people closest to us because we care about what they think and how they look at us. And so somehow, we don't want to disappoint them. But if you fuel your life with other people's expectations and their opinions, we're going to run out of gas. And so what I would say to those individuals who are like these at the senior center, for example, I also hear a lot of regrets. And when you're taking your final breaths, not pleasant again, none of other people's opinions are going to matter in those moments. None of other people's expectations, none of your fears are going to matter. What's going to matter is how you learned, how you laughed, how you loved, how you lived. I believe the life you live are the lessons you teach. I truly believe that, and it can be scary. I'll admit it. Growth can be hard. Change can be scary, but nothing is as hard and scary as being stuck somewhere you don't belong. Right. And so I would say for everyone listening, I promise you, when I talk about Limitless, it's not a name of my book. It's not about being perfect. It's about advancing and progressing and retrying the borders and boundaries of what's possible for you. Because there is a version of yourself in the future that's patiently waiting. And I think the goal is we show up every day, we learn, we're kind, we work hard until we're introduced, to that person.
Wow, that's a beautiful image. I swim in these waters and I'm sitting here completely blissed out and I'm fired, ready to go out there and tackle the next challenge. So inspiring, Jim, really absolutely is. So thank you so much. Where can people find out more about your work? You mentioned a resource for nootropics. I think brainresearch.com, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, brainnutrition.com.
Right.
Guide there also as well. We also have a free gift for everybody. It's not how smart you are or how smart your kids are or how smart your spouse is. How are they smart? And everybody learns in different ways. And we've identified 4 different brain types. And we use colorful animals that you could be a cheetah, an owl, a dolphin, or an elephant. And once you understand your brain type, you understand so much about, I think having the curiosity to know yourself is so important, but also having the courage to be yourself. And this shows you that, sometimes if you want to learn something and you're not getting it, it's kind of like you're trying to learn it with your opposite hand. If I was asked everyone to draw, write their name with their dominant hand, easy, great. But if I asked them to reverse it and with the other hand, write their name on below it, it would take longer. It would be more uncomfortable. It would feel a little weird and the quality wouldn't be as good. Sometimes when we're learning something, it's like we're learning with the opposite hand. So it takes longer and it's uncomfortable. Sometimes your brain type is different than the teacher's brain type. Your learning style is different than their teaching style. And it's like 2 ships in the night. You're passing each other. There's no connection. You don't even recognize the other one's there. So the best way to get this is we created an assessment. It's only 4 minutes. It's free for your community. You get it at mybrainanimal.com. And it's a 4-minute multiple choice. And you'll see what your dominant brain type is. And then I'll give you strategies and videos and free, reports on how to read faster, how to improve your memory, how to even parent, sell, everything based on brain types. So mybrainanimal.com. And then everything we put out there, 95% is free. You can join 1.7 million subscribers on YouTube. We have a podcast. Just search my name in your podcast app, 400 episodes. And then my book, Limitless, you can find anywhere. And we donate all the proceeds to build schools. We built schools in Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya, and also Alzheimer's research. But I would challenge everyone to do, Fleet, is take a screenshot wherever you're consuming this and tag Fleet, tag myself, and share one thing you're going to do for your brain today. My social media is just at Jim Kwik everywhere, KWIK. And so that way we get to see it. And I'll actually gift a few signed copies of Limitless just randomly to people who do that. So if you don't tag us, we won't see it. So we'll repost it and share. Because I think what you do is you learn something, you apply it, and then you share it. When you teach something, you get to learn it twice. If you want to be a faster learner, you take advantage of something called the explanation effect. The explanation effect says if you have the intention of learning something with teaching it to somebody else, you're going to learn it so much better.
Wow, I love that. What a beautiful, empowering call to action. So thank you so much for that. And I really encourage our audience to all take action on that. So thank you so much, Jim. This has been absolutely illuminating. So really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate your work, Fleet. Thank you so much for the work that you do, not only what you do, but how you do it.
Thank you. Be well. Thank you for joining me on the Radical Responsibility Podcast. Remember, real change happens when we commit to our growth, face our challenges with compassion, and stay open to transformation. If you found this episode helpful, I encourage you to subscribe and help us spread the message of healing and personal empowerment. Stay grounded, stay present, and stay true to you. Take care.